evening, everybody. And before we begin with the presentations, I would like to explain to you the balloting process. There are 7 teams or individuals who are going to present their designs to you tonight. They'll each have about 10 minutes to describe what their concepts are for a gateway feature for the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Project. Each of you will have a ballot that has a place for each of those 7 concepts to write your comments, what you like about each design, what you don't like about each design, and then at the end of the evening, you have an opportunity to rank 1 through 7, 1 being my favorite, 7 being my least favorite of the overall designs. Now, I don't want to get too much into what you're saying, but what we're doing with these designs is that the design team and design and engineering team for the McLaughlin project will look at these and be able to select elements from any or all of the designs that might move forward as part of the design of the roadway. So we're very excited to have some creative influence by the students. Once you have filled out your ballot, as you're leaving, there is a box in the back, and you just place it in there. And the winner of the we're calling it the People's Choice Award, will be presented with an award at the Urban Renewal Commission meeting on February 6th. And with that, also I just wanted to mention, if you have not signed in, please sign in before you leave. Thank you. I'll turn this over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Schnabel, and I'm an instructor at the Portland State University School of Architecture. And I'm the least interesting visitor here for you tonight because I didn't do any work on your behalf. But we've got 7 groups of students who have worked very hard, and I just want to mention that the work that they took on behalf of Oregon City in the form of this competition was work that they did simultaneously with all the other work that we were asking them to do in their studio settings and as a matter of their other coursework. So they went above and beyond the call of duty. And I can tell you that while there is prize money involved, and that's certainly a really attractive incentive for any student, what we find with our students is that it's the opportunity to really engage real communities and do real work that is the motivator. And so I think as you talk to each of these students individually, they would be able to kind of verify their interest. The process started with a site visit a couple of weeks ago. We spent a very chilly morning taking our lives in our hands by running across McLaughlin at points where we weren't probably supposed to be running across McLaughlin. So I tried to turn my head and just not think about the consequences of that. And then last weekend, the mayor and some other representatives from the city and from David Evans Associates joined us in our studio setting and provided us some ground rules and some feedback about the vision for the community and what this gateway, what this territory might mean in terms of the broader picture of Oregon City. And so what you have here tonight are then 7 different visions of what that stretch of McLaughlin as it enters the city, essentially from the bridge to the 205 overpass, what that territory might be. I'd like, before I kind of turn it over to the students to do their presentations, I would like to offer our deep thanks to David Evans Associates and to the City of Oregon City for engaging us in this process and allowing us to really fulfill the mission of Portland State University, which is to serve the community. And so this project is very much in line with that activity, and so we are grateful for the opportunity to fulfill that mission. And I hope you enjoy some of the ideas that emerged this evening. And we look forward to your feedback on those ideas. So with that, I'm also in charge of audiovisual here this evening, so I'm going to have to turn over the mic for just a second and get the first slide going. Okay. So I'm turning this over to the Navigate author. Yes. And I will.
Well, greetings. My name is Andrew. Thanks for having us out here. This has been a really fun experience, and it was great to explore the city and get to know it a little bit. The title of my proposal was Navigate, Find Your Way to Main Street. And the idea that I was trying to get at was the importance of reaching the threshold of the city and being drawn into the heart and the core, which in my mind is downtown. And so I came up with 3 concepts that were based on my interest in history, which was imagining the journey that people took across the continent on the Oregon Trail, and trying to imagine what it was like trying to find your way across this big, broad landscape, and the strategies that people would use to find their way. And so, starting on the left side, the first idea was that of settlement. And so I imagined, that people would move from settlement to settlement and look forward to having these places where they could arrive and find other people and services. And so the heart of the proposal is using the areas that are colored in green to develop a commercial street edge right at the threshold of the city. And I thought that this would be an interesting contrast to the area to the north that's full of these really broad, open spaces with large car lots, RV lots, and it gives this wide expanse. And once you come across the bridge, I imagined closing that down to this intimate scale where you'd see people along the storefronts, utilizing the businesses, talking to people, maybe getting tips on what's going on in the city or where the best places were. The second idea was that of traces, and this I imagined being following a game trail out across the prairie, or finding your way using the old wagon ruts that other people had left behind, and so that led me to kind of create a scheme for this storefront development where the planting and the sidewalk design would be overlaid with the geometry of Main Street. So when you're coming down McLaughlin, you're kind of on a north-south pathway, but Main Street follows the river and kind of swings, and so the pattern on the landscaping and the sidewalk would reflect that swing and offer people this kind of little mystery or this little bit of a trace of what's ahead of them, and maybe prompt them to explore further. And the landscaping kind of focused on decorative grasses that have this kind of explosive sort of natural look to them and change throughout the seasons. You get various tones and colors, but it has a very natural feel. And then along the sidewalk, the pattern is made from exposed aggregate concrete, which is an idea I picked up on from the David Evans designs. And this kind of has sort of the nature of the river built into it. You use water to wash away the finer particulates to expose the bigger aggregates. And so this is kind of like the riverside, where the water carries the silt away and exposes these rocks. And that's what I imagine people, as they walk down the sidewalk, they would see this pattern, and it would offer these clues about what lies ahead. And then finally, I came up with an idea for what I called the Starway, which came from this sort of romantic idea of people crossing the continent, and at night the sky opening up with a big field of stars, and that's how people would get a sense of where they were and where they were going and orient themselves within the world. And I thought that the the bridge is kind of this big, dramatic, really cool piece of infrastructure, and it could be heightened and appreciated more by a lighting scheme that really activates it. So this is based on a sort of starscape of LEDs that would be installed on the bridge, and these would light up. So as you're coming through the bridge, the sky would open up as this big sort of star field, and then that lighting philosophy could be taken through all the way to downtown. So it would be in the trees when you don't have a large surface overhead. And then, when you come under 205, you'd have another field of stars above you. And this would be something that would be on the horizon. So as you're crossing through the bridge, you'd see the next light installation over at 205. And this would be something that would draw you through and guide you into the heart of downtown. So those were my core ideas. And I will leave you with that.
Ceremoniously throw the other one out.
Am I a good distance away from the microphone? Because I actually have a really loud presentation voice, so I don't want to blast anybody's ears or anything. Starting out looking at this project, by the way, my name is Chris Klein, and my project is Timeline, Gateway to a Rich History. When we kind of started out with this project, one of the pieces of paper we got was this whole sheet of interesting kind of historical facts about Oregon City. Kind of reading through them, it became kind of apparent to me that there's a lot more that I didn't even have a clue about that kind of really captivated my attention, such as the first moonshine whiskey still was built in Oregon. The first furniture factory built in Oregon was here. The first territorial legislator in Oregon Territory met in 1849. All this kind of interesting facts that really spoke out to me. And when I started to kind of look at those facts, I always think of these pictures that kind of emerge out of this, that kind of tell the story behind that time and place. And you kind of look and you say, wow, that's completely a different time, and I can't imagine what it was like back then. And just a sense of history that kind of comes from that is a little awe-inspiring. So you can get the next. So kind of this is where I focused in on the project area. I was looking, coming right off of the bridge there, focusing really on creating a space where even if you were driving by, it became this landmark on the sides that you wanted to come back as a pedestrian or as a cyclist and visit. So the idea of bringing you kind of back to the river once you took that kind of car ride into the city and the main transport kind of into the city. So this is the main concept I'm proposing. The idea of the timeline is having these landmarks or these kind of fragments that emerge out of somewhat of a puzzling walkway that carries up where the natural vegetation merges in together with the walkway. Things like benches and natural landscape kind of emerge out, kind of speaking with the same language that these fragments kind of pop up. With the on these individual landmarks that I saw was displayed history of Oregon City, where there could be various facts, kind of like I mentioned, interesting tidbits, stories about Oregon City that were carried through that are valued and important to display and kind of educate the community. And on the ground would be an embedded timeline that would talk about the year that eventually talks all the way back to the beginning of Oregon City, which leads you to the river. And then, as I imagine, as Oregon City continues on, pieces can continually be added. So it's somewhat of a dynamic piece that allows for further addition and really embraces the pedestrian and cyclist aspect and takes some of the focus off of the car. You can go to the next slide. So looking down, what I would call the timeline is this display of information that emerges up. You have various facts, and people can kind of stop and really embrace the history of Oregon City. And also have kind of a nice walk down this safe space where there's lots of vegetation leading you kind of to the natural habitat of the river. And again, like on the ground is embedded kind of the history, talking about where you are in the place and time, putting you in that history in a sense, and creating like a large kind of community space where that can all be shared with the community of Oregon City and people who are coming into the city for the first time. You can go to the next. And one of the ideas is at nighttime that these would be illuminated, and it would create somewhat of a romantic space that could still be visited at night. It's that walk you take with your partner down this space, and you kind of observe the facts. So it doesn't just become a lit walkway. It becomes somewhere where you can have something to do as you're walking down. And looking at the street condition, my idea for safe cycling was not to change the road too much, but just to paint the bike lanes and create an illuminated strip that runs all the way down. So there's a safety for cyclists riding all the way down the street, and they're kind of visible at night. And the idea is also with benches and illuminating the vegetation in somewhat of a romantic way to really speak to kind of how this thing all comes together. I think that's, yeah. So that's the timeline. That's my general kind of concepts. And thank you again for the opportunity to take part in this. It was a lot of fun.
Everyone hear me? Hear me okay? I'm Dylan Morgan, and thanks for having us. Like the previous two students have mentioned, this was a lot of fun for us. Nice to be a part of a real urban design project. I wanted to start with kind of a general map because I think that even a simple map tells a lot about the context that this project is in. If we look at Oregon City, kind of the main part of downtown, this dot here is where the elevator is. We can tell that there's a lot more urban fabric here. There's a lot more built up in the city, obviously, and we know that Oregon City has really been defined by its relationship with the river, from native fishing to logging, Lewis and Clark, paper mills, and the city is in a lot of ways kind of right in the geology of the river. I came up the elevator on my way here, and that's all part of the same process of the Missoula floods, basalt flows, and the site that we're looking at today, up near the confluence of the Clackamas and the Willamette, is a very different place. It's much more of a place of sediment and kind of a place that's in flux, and for that reason. Or at least that's part of the reason why we see less roads up there. There's kind of less buildable land up there currently, and I think we can move on to the next slide. This is a panoramic photo from the site, of looking south but also looking west towards the river, and you can tell that there's a kind of a slope dropping us down into that floodplain, and that when we're on the street, we're up on an artificially constructed kind of pedestal. That's allowing Clackamas Drive to pass underneath 99. And when you're a pedestrian up there, you can see beautiful views of the river, but you're very much kind of disconnected from the parks and the edge of the river. And so a lot of my thinking was about how can we connect this future pedestrian space with all of the beautiful parks and access to the river that surrounds it. Go ahead. So when I thought about that, I thought about the word confluence, that if I had to use one word to describe what's happening and what is needed on this site, it would be confluence, for the obvious reason that we're standing next to the confluence of two rivers, but we're also trying to merge the kind of urbanism that we find downtown with the more natural park setting and riverside ecology that exists in the site that we're looking at right now. So we're really thinking about confluence in the broader sense of the term. How can we bring the urban together with the natural? And so these are some sketches about ramps and stairways, perhaps with stadium seating, connecting people to the river, both as a place to sit and kind of look out on the river, but also literally trying to make as many connections as possible, since there's not a lot of streets, there's not a lot of ways to cross 99. So Clackamas Drive is one option as a way of crossing underneath, and we need to make sure that there's very easy pedestrian access down to that lower level. Go ahead. So here's what that might look like if we're diagramming all of the flows that are passing through this area, trying to make sure that all of the cyclists that currently use the space are safe, but also thinking about pedestrians on foot. What are the ways that I can travel from the future kind of urban space that might be filled with storefronts? What are the ways that I can travel from that space down to the river safely, but also kind of poetically? How can I understand that water is flowing down off of this higher elevation down into the river, and perhaps pedestrians follow a similar path to the water, so that we're really aware of the river ecology? Go ahead, Jeff. And so then when we're up on the street, this is what it might look like at the same intersection of 99 and Clackamas Drive. If we think about integrating stormwater treatment and vegetation into bike lanes and pedestrian walkways, perhaps using some of the same language from Phase 1, where we've got boardwalks and those beautiful railings. And in a way, we're constructing almost like a porch where we're looking out towards the river. As a driver, when you pass through this zone, kind of repeated lighting fixtures would let you know that you're entering kind of a special zone. And as a pedestrian, when you pass through these lighting fixtures, it's almost like you're experiencing a gateway in the other direction. You're kind of passing from this pedestrian realm down into the more natural park settings below. And I think that's it in a nutshell. Thank you very much.
Since it's 2, you only have 5 minutes.
So good evening, everybody. My name is Brian. This is Heather. We are the first team, apparently. I want to take this time to thank David Evans, Oregon City, PSU for bringing this project to us. It was really exciting and gave us some opportunities to apply our design skills and thinking on the fly here. So it was a lot of fun. So this image, it's about what Oregon City sort of meant to me. When I first moved to Portland, I was really intrigued by Oregon City and the waterfall there. Being a whitewater raft guide and being drawn to the rivers, this is a place that just naturally brought me to it. And the falls itself was a big draw, but what I was also drawn to, being an architect, was the neighborhoods up on top of the bluff. I sort of passed through the tunnel, stopped at the overlook, and then found myself wandering through the city itself and really intrigued by the historic town and houses up there. So I sort of let a lot of the commercial and industrial kind of aspects of the history kind of fade into the background until this project came along, and I was able to kind of immerse myself in the commercial industrial aspects of the town. So this is kind of where our project started. It's about a transition from the traditions of Oregon City. Like Chris mentioned, the rich history of Oregon City and its traditions of firsts, the moonshine still, the flour mills, the woolen mills, the paper mills, these were all firsts in Oregon. And the one that kind of stuck with us was the long distance electric transmission to Portland. So we wanted to take this history and announce it and connect to it by keeping it alive in our proposal.
Yeah, I would add that, we saw this electrical transmission as a foundation for this gateway and as a link from the modern human connectivity to the history of the electrical transmission. And so you can go to the next slide. And our big idea is that residents and even tourists who pass through the historic city should pause and recognize this gateway and relate it to the other monuments or the other historical ideas and placements that Brian had mentioned. Do you want to?
So this was about sort of the vertical separation of the site. We kind of saw it as 3 steps down. You start at the road level, and then down to the park, and then down to the river. So we wanted to sort of announce this with a large gateway feature that sort of announces the confluence of the rivers and the possibilities of the recreation down towards the river and drawing you in. It's sort of a swooping path to bring you up above the roadway, get a nice view out, and then it leads down towards the river for more views down there.
So you can see in the plan we have this historical or this gateway that represents this electrical transmission, but we wanted this interaction between the levels and this the bike and pedestrian route to interact with the upper and lower levels. And so we have a confluence overlook that almost covers the skate park that's existing there, and then that feeds out into this this public art area, which we can show you in the next slide. We kind of saw this historical first. As you know, Oregon City is one of the most recognized for its historical first in the Western communities, and so we kind of wanted to put that in the site as this something that you're walking along and just a small little identity that you can notice and relate to, and then again with the bike paths and then the pedestrian connectivity. Go to the next slide. And then you want to? I'll let you.
And then this was just a reflection back on the history of Oregon City. We were proposing maybe taking some old structure from the old mill plant or an electric transmission tower and kind of place it down by the river, connecting the history of old Oregon City back to this new gateway tower piece that represents sort of a new transition. And this would just be down by the Clackamas Park there as an overlook into the confluences. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Eric and this is my fellow studio mate Eddie. Like everybody else, not to sound like a broken record, we want to thank you for this opportunity. Eddie and I both grew up in the Portland area, and I think it's pretty much impossible to have gone through the Portland elementary school system without having made the pilgrimages down to Oregon City to learn about the history. So we really tried to kind of incorporate what we knew growing up in our design. So to get started, we have a little block of text on the board that I'm going to read off that we hope kind of encapsulates everything we're going for. It says, a gateway designed for a city rich in regional history, fabric connectivity intertwines historical significance, industrial prominence, and a spectacular natural setting through highlighting the neglected cornerstones of Oregon City. Users walk along a historic timeline embedded in a circulation path that provides viewpoints to take in the surrounding scenery. A stone-clad water feature acting as the median of 99E results in a 2-point waterfall, which acknowledges the cultural importance of the Willamette and Clackamas River connection. The railing system, decking of the extended circulation path, and water feature all pay tribute to the industries of quarrying, timber, and hydropower. So what we did with our images is we kind of broke up the board to give everybody a sense of what we were looking at. So Jeff, if you want to go to the next one too. So between the two with the site plan, we really tried to have a form that was derived from the estuary that's created from the Clackamas and the Willamette River. so that it has kind of this nice flow for people as they experience it in two different means, which we'll talk about later. But the angularity of the form comes from a place of us wanting to give kind of an individual experience to the users walking along the side route, or as cyclists are redirected through a new path.
So I'll speak a little bit about the kind of the layout of the floor plan. Jeffrey, you could go back one. Starting from the north side on the west bank, for pedestrians, you would walk down. The path would be broken into by planters and a lighting strategy that we'll talk about to create different experiences for both the pedestrian and the bicyclist, as well as a water feature running around the median for the car user. Jeff, if you could go to the next. One would walk down south and get to an area where it's the overpass over the Clackamas Drive, where one would stand and be able to experience the river. It's the only possible view that we found that could be used for pedestrians to view the river, even after new development. Then you would walk down and you would find yourself on this cross between the kind of the water feature and the back walk path down to the river. And then the bikeway is rerouted down to Clackamas Drive, where we found that there's a lot of bicyclists that take that route to get to Oregon City.
So as we've kind of touched on, we were trying to really highlight what we've seen as the cornerstones of Oregon City. So for someone that's walking this way, you do have this kind of divergent paths where you can kind of choose which way you might go. And we chose to incorporate things that would be indicative of Oregon City's history and culture. So you can go to the next one, Jeff. So in this rendering on the left here, we chose to use materials such as different blends of wood that would be reminiscent of the timber industry. Tried to use a railing system that would kind of appear as transparent as possible and could also relate to the existing development that's just a little bit further south. So for this one on the left, the angularity of it as it separates from the existing walkway, basically on that inside railing is kind of where the existing sidewalk ends. We wanted to kind of give this different experience to the user as they walked along the path, so that we could really highlight what we saw right where that overpass is a really beautiful vantage point that could really be celebrated. So along with that, underneath each light fixture, which Jay's going to talk about in a second, is we have a plaque underneath each one, which makes the walkway act as a historic timeline. So that in the bottom there where it says history, at night you have this laser cut steel plaque that is backlit, and it will provide a date and an event that happened, such as like the first sawmill that was founded in Oregon City in 1842. So that's just another experience to try to incorporate education into this journey as well for users.
Something that intrigued us a lot about Oregon City is the sense of intimacy. So we wanted to spend a lot of time in details. One of the details on the railing, as you might be able to see, the way that it's constructed, the way the cables are rerouted to talk about the transparency and continuity and convergence of the river, of the Willamette and Clackamas River, as well as the continuity on the light fixtures. One continuous steel member that wraps up into the air and then comes down to create lighting, as well as a marker for the historical plaques that we would like to integrate. If you could go to the next. as well as we wanted to create experiences for both pedestrian and bikes and cars. The water feature that you see on the left rendering would kind of provide a clue to the drivers who can experience the river as pedestrians can. Having a waterway run through, not through the road, but by the cars, just separating both ways. And then coming to a conclusion in the center where two waterfalls meet. That could also be a way for pedestrians to orient themselves to the river.
Okay, so in the overall design, we really wanted to incorporate a different sense of scale that gives people a chance to really experience the surrounding environment in a more intimate fashion, like Eddie was talking about. And we're going for this overall composition of nature, industry, and history, like we talked about, and then how there would be an individual experience for each one. So if you passed by in a car and you drove by that water feature and you saw that waterfall, which is actually directly in line with the footpath that goes down to the water, it makes you curious as to what the experience could be like if you're not in a car. And maybe vice versa if you're on a bicycle and you'd rather walk along the timeline itself. So we felt that kind of by calling out these points of getting a good advantage of the surrounding area, we could really help maybe bolster economic development by influencing the way building forms may be created in the future, as well as giving this really nice kind of natural gateway to this part of McLaughlin that is right now what we feel is under-celebrated. Excuse me. So really, to kind of sum it up, we were just trying to incorporate inherent qualities of Oregon City back into this gateway that we feel needs to be really profound because there's so much history here. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Joel Dixon. My project sort of is about the gateway itself and how it creates space and how it transitions people into Oregon City itself and welcomes people in. So that transition happens through these sort of series of columns that sort of start to create space making with the boardwalk, which is sort of a continuation also of the Phase 1 project. And so it starts to create this sort of thread of projects that happen. Everybody can hear me? Yeah? Okay. So if you get the next one, Jeff. So the idea of these columns is that they're sort of this transitional element that transitions in scale, but also creates a separation between the traffic, which is actually traveling pretty quickly down 99, and the places that people might actually want to inhabit, and also allowing them that connectivity to the river and also to Clackamat down below, and as well it starts to provide a connection to the future further development next to the McDonald's Clackamat Drive there. That space, once it actually potentially becomes filled in, then this boardwalk itself starts to become a sort of plaza itself, bleeding into the new context of the site. And the columns themselves are sort of conceived of as, you can go to the next one, Jeff, as this pair of folded steel pieces that sort of represents these sort of timber columns, and are meant to be this sort of connection of the past and the future. So it's sort of an homage to the history of the timber industry and the industrial nature of Oregon City, as well as where it's going now in the future in terms of its industry. So it's meant to be this sort of marriage of all of those things, past, present, future. And if we go to the next one, Jeff. So this is a sort of closer look at those columns and how they would just sort of come together, sort of just cupping each other, and then at night they sort of emit this light. And the scaling of these columns sort of is meant to transition, both in the way that it sort of starts to reveal people to people in cars, Oregon City itself. So at first it sort of obscures, and then the closer the people get to the Oregon City, it starts to reveal, and it also starts to bring the scale down to the humanistic scale at its almost final point. And that's another slide. So this is a close-up of the boardwalk and sort of pocket parks that might sort of emerge in the spaces that people would inhabit on that boardwalk, and sort of tying in the timber industry to pull in the board formed concrete as well as the e-pave that is present in phase one, and to sort of mix those in with the water collection system itself, so that everything's sort of working in concert together. And then also tying in a call back to the previous project too, the columnar basalt that sort of becomes these place-making and place-dividing and sort of sitting and play places for people to inhabit as well. So I think that might be the last one. Oh. Same sort of thing, sort of viewed back. And this is sort of the right side looking towards the bridge. And that's it. Thanks again, everyone.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Clifford. It's an honor to be involved to present ideas to all of you. I'm thinking about this entry into Oregon City in two scales. There's the speed at which cars travel and the speed at which people walk. And there's a problem of foreground, middle ground, and background in this situation where you're crossing the bridge, you're in this really nice bridge moment, and then you come out on this elevated island where you're not necessarily going to look toward the river. You're not looking down. You're passing quickly ahead. And by the time you get near the crossing over Clackamet or Dune Street, you've become immersed in this middle ground of signs and McDonald's and trees, and the freeway interchange is ahead, and it's hard to differentiate where you are and, in fact, if you are crossing a threshold. So taking that bridge moment and while you're still participating in that moment, looking ahead and seeing this gateway ahead of you, which is actually creating the middle ground in the picture. And then the background becomes the horizon of Oregon City itself, which is where the sky is meeting the land, and it's actually at the top of the bluff where the mass of Oregon City is. You can go ahead. So this is what really got me excited, was the idea of what's going to happen here in the future. I think that the areas that I outlined in silver are going to be activated in an urban sense. There's going to be, it's an extremely desirable place to be, and it's going to be built up, and then on the other side, which faces the parks and the cove, that's an opportunity for a really elegant promenade for your park space there. I'm thinking of like Sydney, Australia, where they have park and street and or buildings and street and beach on the other side. So this, you may have noticed that as you cross the bridge and you're headed into town, that this formulation appears to be two-dimensional, and in fact is three-dimensional. As you get there at high speed in your car, you enter a threshold zone, which makes you conscious that you're there, and also makes you conscious that you've left the space, and you're actually transitioning from that space into Oregon City. Now, considering the second scale, and you can go on to the next slide. What happens down there? This is on Main Street. The river would be to the right, and this little space that's available on the frontage road there would be part of this arc of lights that comprises the left hand of the gateway. And I imagine that with water reclamation scheme that happens at that point, it would be a urban activating water feature, which would be to the benefit of everyone who uses the space later. And while it may not look like Grafton Street in Dublin, Ireland, which is what I threw in there, it has potential, and I believe that it will be sought after for development very soon. You can go on to the next slide. This is looking from the other side. 99 is going over, and you're looking up at that space. And the punch out on this side of the overpass is a pedestrian area where people can come, hang out, look over the edge, see the river, and then when they want to, come down the stairs and enjoy the urban context and the park and the riverfront, which can be there. And again, doesn't have to look like Bavaria. Next slide. And that's the final image, the gateway idea. It's this shape is welcoming. It's the embrace, and it's also bestowing of dignity on Oregon City. That's it.
Well, unless there's a surprise late entry, I believe that's it. So my understanding is everyone has ballots in hand. What we are going to do is put the boards back out in the hallway, and the students have agreed. Well, I told them that they could stand by their boards, and then if you have some specific questions for them, you can chat with them about their schemes. And then are we going to put a time limit where ballots have to be in the box by a certain time? So
yeah, I think we could go with they have to be in by 20 minutes. 7:20.
At 7:20 for your ballot to be counted, they have to be in the ballot box that is by the two security-looking gentlemen. They look like they're really going to monitor that back there. So if your ballot's still in that box, and again, we do greatly appreciate the opportunity to work with you. Yes.
Do we get to vote as well?
I was thinking that it wouldn't be a good idea if you guys could vote.
Well, they only vote once.
They get to rank the other projects.
Yeah,
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Part of what we're trying to do here is have people who are in the city sort of react to it.
They put their names on it. So
Yes, you put your name on it.
Okay.
But I do want to mention for those of you who came in a little late, we appreciate all your comments, good or bad, on each of the designs. And then before you leave, rank them 1 to 7, with 1 being your first choice and 7 being your last choice, and put them in the box. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.